In today's video, we're going to be checking out a 3D printer from Kingroon, and this is the KLP1. So this is my first time reviewing this brand, and I'm pretty excited to see what it's all about. So in this video, we're going to unbox it, set it up, and do some prints. Hope you guys enjoy it. Let's get started. Alright, so this is the Kingroon KLP1. We can see a picture here of what it looks like. This is what FDM stands for, Fused Deposition Molding. The box is not too big, but it's very heavy at 42 pounds. And there are some handles on each side to carry it. Let's go ahead and open it up. So it is packed quite well. We can see there's hard corners. We got our manual booklet. We also have this here, and I'm not sure exactly what this is. It says quick disassembly guide. Got pretty thick foam. We got a couple things inside, which is a box, and looks like a door or a couple doors to install. So to get the printer out, which is quite heavy, I think the best thing to do is just put it on its side and dump it out. Hard corners on all sides, completely encased in foam. Looks like what we can do is pull the bottom part off here. Here we can see the printer upside down. We do have 4 feet that it sits on. They're actually quite nice. It's like a metal with rubber inserts inside. So let's go ahead and flip it over right side up. And now we can take the upper portion off. So for the interior one, you want to lift it this way away from the head, and it comes out quite easily. So it's a little hard to tell, but on the top here we have an arrow and also an arrow here, and there's a little bolts underneath that we have to take out to cut the X and Y loose as it's bolted down so it doesn't move around during shipping. But before that, let's go ahead and see what's in this box. So we have quite a few things. We got a nozzle clean out needle, a little baggie of tools, some Allen wrenches, open-ended wrench, and actually an extra nozzle in there. It says 0.4 on it. A USB thumb drive, some hardware bolts that are marked what size they are, a metal spool holder that we have to install, a USB to USB Type-C cable, more hardware, looks like knobs, and also bolts, some grease to keep the rails and rods lubricated, an adapter. Kind of hard to see, but it says micro SD to eMMC adapter, so whatever that's for. We got some cutters, pretty nice ones. A little sample of PLA white filament, a PTF e-tubing, the power cord, and for the last thing, looks like we got a little stylus here for the touch screen, which is interesting. And that's everything that was in this box. So let's grab the correct Allen wrench to undo the little bolt that's keeping the Y from moving, which is right here, because we can't get to the X until we get the Y loose. And the bolt's literally right underneath the arrow. And that's what it looks like. So now we should be able to move it this way, sure enough. And you guys probably can't see, but there's another arrow right here. There's an arrow right here with a bolt behind it. And so we need to take out this bolt now. And as simple as that, now our X can move. So let's take a closer look at the manual. So on the first page, we can see all the parameters on the bottom there, explains what every part of the printer is. And then everything that's included, and it goes straight to configuring it and kind of using the printer. So no instructions here, but I think it's on this assembly or disassembly guide card. Here it shows us to unlock the XYZ, which actually we forgot to unlock the Z bolts, which are down there behind the bed. There's also pointers. I guess I'm gonna go ahead and do that. There's 2 of these longer bolts. So that's this step here. The next part is installing the door, the top cover, and also the spool holder in the back. And that's going to be these guys here. So the smaller, more square one obviously goes on the top, and we can see the hinges here, and the little bolts go into here. And it's like a cover. And then we have the door here also with some hinges, and that's going to go here on the side. And you guys can see it's like a really darkened acrylic panel. We got something here, looks like it magnetically magnetizes. So the bag of bolts that has a lot of them, which are M3 6mm, is the ones for the hinges. I'm gonna grab the correct Allen wrench, open up the hinge so the door is open, and then start our little bolts on our door here. So don't tighten anything, just start them all first and then tighten them because they might need to move around a bit to line up. Alright, so now that we have all of them in, we can snug them up. And don't do it too hard, as the hinges are plastic, so you don't want to over compress it. Just when it starts to get snug, that should be good enough. And so now we need to put the knob here on the front. Now we're going to grab one of the 2 knobs. And so for the knob, we're using the M4 6mm bolts. And so our bolt will go through the inside, and then on the outside will be our knob. And again, be careful not to over tighten this, just snug, and that's good enough. So now we should be able to close the door, and it magnetizes. And it looks like everything lines up perfect here, so that's good. Now let's do the top, same way. We'll peel it. And here actually on the front of it, on the bottom, we can see there's a magnetic strip here that magnetizes to the base. But yeah, same concept here. It's gonna line up, and we're gonna put our little bolts through the hinges into the frame. Snug them up and we're good. Grab our other knob, the little M4 bolt, and there's a hole here. The bolt will go through and then the knob on top. And again guys, it doesn't need to be too tight, just slight tightness, but yeah, that's how that opens. And it's nice, it's magnetic, so it's not going to, you know, pop open or anything. So that's well thought through. And here also, everything is looking really good. And so the only thing left is our spool holder, which we'll also use 2 little M3 bolts, the ones we used for the hinges, and that's gonna go in the back. You guys can see right here, literally lines up. So yeah, pretty simple here on the spool holder, and the spool will sit here and then I guess roll out into this filament detector. Then we have this PTFE tubing, which is kind of all doesn't make sense here a bit, but I guess we'll see how that all goes once we start printing. But yeah, I'm just guessing it goes from the spool to the detector and then from the detector into here. So, but as far as the assembly is concerned, that is everything that we have to put together. And so for the next part, we probably need to plug it in so we can raise this build plate, or maybe we can manually raise it now that it's loose. Let's go ahead and try that. Okay, yeah, so it goes up with a little bit of force. Yeah, be careful, grab it towards the back if you do that. Now we can slide this out, and also we need to remove that shrink wrap inside. And there we go, and our assembly is officially complete. All right, so let's take a closer look at the LP1. We got a pretty attractive design that's enclosed with 2 doors, one here, the main one, and then one on top. So our doors are like this tinted acrylic. On the top one here, we have a magnet, so it doesn't pop up when it's printing. We've got knobs here to pull them up. Same thing for this door, it's magnetic. So let's take a closer look inside. We do have linear rails for X and Y on both sides. This is a CoreXY configuration, as you can see by the double belts. So since this is an enclosed printer, we can see our wires are kind of going through here and then out the back through the side panel to keep it completely sealed. So we got a power wire and PTFE tubing here going to the hot end. This is a direct drive extruder. It looks like here's our parts cooling fan. And if we look underneath, we can kind of see here it's blowing underneath the nozzle. It does look like we have a pretty large heat block it's around. It does go up to 300 C. We got a sensor there for Z-axis height and bed leveling. And then all of our electronics here are on the side. But yeah, in the back there we have the X and Y motors that do the CoreXY movements. And then our Z rod is run by that motor back there. So all the wiring is quite tidy in there. And going down to the build plate, we do have a removable PI sheet, and it's coated on both sides, which is great because you can use either side. We got a magnetic mat. We got a pretty solid metal frame. And there's no adjustments on the bed because it's all automatically compensated. We do have really thick rods for the bed travel too, so that's great. And by the way, the build volume is 230 by 230 by 210 tall. So you guys can see the bed is quite large for the size of the printer. Here we have the manufacturing label. It tells us all the info about the printer. Right under that, we got the Kingroon logo, and it looks like it lights up. So that's pretty cool. And here we have the touch screen. And what's interesting is this printer comes with a stylus that you can use to touch it. So yeah, I guess we'll have to see how well that works. Obviously, I'd prefer just using my finger, but if we have to use this, maybe for this screen, it makes more sense. But it does come with this, and you can kind of loop it here somewhere. So going to the right side, it's all clean except for the bottom here. We have some venting, and also we have, you guys can see there, our voltage selector. So make sure you are on the correct voltage. Going to the left side, it's all pretty clean except when we get to the bottom. We got quite a few ports here. We got the Ethernet port, 2 USB ports, and a USB 3.0 port. And so because we have Klipper, we have a lot of options that we can use these ports for. So I got the printer flipped around. This is what the back looks like. Here's our PTFE tubing that comes out. We got our filament detector here and our spool holder. But yeah, all metal built. Going down, we can see we got the power input port. It is fused, but then on and off switch. All right, so now I got the printer laying on one of the sides so we can see the bottom. Thing that really stands out are these feet. So they're metal slash, I guess it's a hard plastic. Initially I thought it was maybe a harder rubber, but no, it feels like it's plastic. So yeah, and the great thing is about these is they're adjustable, so you can go up and down with them. So if your table's a little uneven or the printer is sitting a bit uneven, you can adjust it where it's perfect. So yeah, we have a really large cooling fan here for the board, a little cutout here for the power supply cooling. And yeah, I think I'm gonna go ahead and take this cover out so we can see what's behind it. All right, so we got all the little bolts out, and actually these feet too had to come out. So you have quite a few bolts that hold this. But we can see our fan is plugged in, so I'm just gonna lay it here on the top. And this is what the inside looks like. So it's actually pretty clean. We got our main board here, which is Kingroon branded KP Cheetah version 2.2. Very interesting. Got a heatsink here, eMMC module here. Yeah, quite an interesting looking board. Looks like our drivers are here. They are heat sinked. We got our antenna going out there for Wi-Fi connection. The display uses this little ribbon cable, and it is a maker base. Our power supply is actually quite small, 24 volt, 12.5 amps. And yeah, everything looks quite tidy. Or this is our motor here, and this is our lead screw that goes up through the middle there that runs the bed up and down. So yeah, pretty straightforward and quite clean under here, and everything looks really good. All right, so let's do our first power on. I got the printer plugged in the back. Hit the power switch. And it powers on, and first thing, guys, you can see there, the logo's glowing, which is really cool. And our screen is booting up. There's an animation there. And there we go. Looks like we're booted up. So the font is actually quite small, and it now makes a lot more sense why they include the stylus. And we'll zoom in here in a little bit and check it out. Right off the bat, I can see that everything, or I guess most things, are in Chinese and not English, which is a little disappointing because now we have to figure out how to change that. I went to settings there. It's funny because there is some English here and there, but mostly it's all Chinese. Oh, here we go. On the very bottom of the settings, it says Chinese simple. All right, there we go. So I clicked on English, and now we're in English. So if yours is in Chinese like mine was, click on settings and then scroll all the way down, and the very last thing is the language. So now that I can see what I'm doing, let's go ahead and home the printer. All axes to make sure everything works. So it looks like the Z's moving. The X and Y are moving on the top there. All right, and the Z is going up. And while it's homing, I'm gonna go back and click on temperature. And it looks like we have a hot button here for PLA. Click on that, and now it's preheating. You guys probably can't see because the font is ultra tiny, but we are preheating and homing at the same time. All right, so it looks like it homed good because we do have a confirmation of it stopping. And I can see the build plate is heating up, and also the nozzle. So yeah, everything seems to be working, so that's good. And again, guys, we'll zoom in here in a bit to look at it up closer, but I'm gonna click on bed mesh because we do need to level our bed. And actually it looks like it has been leveled before a bit. So let's go ahead and click the check mark on it to calibrate it. Actually, no, that's not what we need to do. Okay, so there's a calibrate button on the top. I clicked the wrong thing. There we go. So I clicked that, and it looks like it's starting to calibrate. So yeah, everything's good so far. It seems to be doing everything it needs to. So right now it's going to do the mesh measuring the whole bed around and create a plane and then offset according to that plane. The only thing I'm noticing so far is I wish there would be a little light in there so you could see a little better, but yeah, with the doors open it's actually not too bad. But it is on the darker side as these are tinted, and so it'll get dark really fast unless you have a lot of light, you know. In any case, if you guys notice, the wires here stick out pretty bad. I don't know how it would work if it was all closed. Well, I guess it would tuck in under there. Yeah, it seemed like it does need a little bit more room here in between this and the height of this, but alright, so it looks like it's done. And then here it's asking us to save and reboot, and we'll click on continue. And there it goes. Alright, so I guess it rebooted instantly. Oh no, took it a couple seconds. Alright, so yeah, I didn't notice right off the bat, but we do also have a graph. The font is just ultra tiny. I can't believe how small the font is. I guess they try to fit a lot of stuff here in a 3.5 inch. Alright, so we need to set the Z offset, so that's going to be next to the bed mesh. I guess let's click on start. Alright, so it's getting us set up for that. Alright, so it looks like, did he get caught on something? Or I don't know if you guys saw that, but it was jumping around. That was kind of odd. Okay, so it's taking measurements of the bed, and it landed here, which does not look like it's where it's supposed to be. I guess let's click on start again, because alright, so we gotta abort first. So let's click abort and try again here, because I don't know if it's set up correctly or not. Let's see what it does. Try it one more time. Alright, so I'm not too sure why it's so far off the bed. So I'm going to use this little paper here to set the height. It is way off higher than it needs to be. Hopefully we're doing this right, but we do need to go down quite a bit, so I'm going to choose the 5mm increment there and click down. Alright, so we're pretty close now. I'm going to go to 1, click down. I think we're super close, so I'm going to go 0.5, click down. Alright, so we grabbed it. Let's click 0.1 and go up, and there we go. Let's save it here, so we'll click accept. Continue to reboot the whole thing again. Home the machine one more time. And while it's doing that, let's grab our little thumb drive here and we'll see if anything's on it. So all the USBs are on this side. Let's go back, click on print, and sure enough, we do have a few things in there, and I'm not sure if this is the card that I plugged in or it was already in the printer. So I unplugged the thumb drive and looks like it's just in the printer already. So we do have some files to print, which we have 3D Benchy that's fast. It says should be about 25 minutes. And then we got a standard Benchy, which is about 30 minutes. And then we also have a violent Benchy, which is 18 minutes. Then we have a pressure advanced calibration file that I guess is part of the setup here. And actually guys, before we do anything, if we click on settings, you guys can see here we have input shaper. We absolutely need to do that. So that's going to calibrate the movements and compensate for them. So we have auto calibrate. Let's click that. And it's asking us X, Y, or both. We're going to click both. And there it goes. So it's going to take a little bit here and do some measurements, and you guys can see it's moving back and forth. And it's speeding up. So it's actually pretty stable. Make sure you are very flat, and if you have to, adjust it with your feet. So the printer's starting to move now. It's vibrating so hard that it's moving the whole table. Oh, that's a pretty violent test. It's not kidding around with this thing. The whole printer started drifting. Yeah, make sure your feet here are adjusted where it doesn't move at all. Okay, so it did it this way, now it's doing it this way, which is back and forth, or front to back. And actually, because this printer has hard feet, it'd probably be a good idea to put it on something rubbery or soft. As it does tend to vibrate on a hard surface because of the hard feet. Alright, now it's finished. We can click on continue to reboot. Alright, well, I think we got the basics set up, and I guess we should put some filament in, but before we do that, let's go ahead and take a closer look at the screen. Alright, hopefully you guys can see the screen. It is very, very small fonted. and there's a little bit of glare, but hopefully you guys can still see everything. So this is our main menu. We can see the temperature of the nozzle, the bed. Here also it's red out. And then we got a graph here for the temperatures. We got hot buttons here, homing, temperature, actions, configuration, and print. And then here on the side we got main buttons, including the stop button here or the reset. So homing goes to our axes. Go back. Temperature lets us preheat here, cool down, and we have these hot buttons, which is PLA, ABS, PETG, and TPU flexible filaments. So if we click on PLA, it's going to preheat 195 on the nozzle and 40 on the bed. So let's go back. Here we have actions, move axes, control our extruder, fan control, macro controls. So you can literally give commands to the printer, and there's quite a few different codes and whatnot else. So this is probably more advanced here. We got pins, disable motors, and console. We go back, we got configuration. This is where we did our mesh leveling, z-axis offset calibration, limits. Let's see what that is. Okay, so this is how hard the printer can be pushed on the XY, accelerations and velocities and things like that. We got network, so this is where you're going to connect to your internet so you can control it from the computer, and you definitely want to do this to take the full advantage of the Klipper software. And I guess I'm going to do that real quick while I'm here. Put in the password, click on save. It's connecting. I'm not sure here if it's trying to connect or it's done, but I'll click close. In any case, this is where you connect your Wi-Fi. Then we got system information. Interestingly, nothing here. Save config and more settings and the input shaper that we've done. So let's click on more settings. So here we have 24-hour time. I'm going to turn that off because I'm on PM, and actually it has the time right here on the side, which is incorrect at the moment. Auto calibrate notification, I guess we'll keep that on. Confirm emergency stop, no. Estimated time is automatic. Font size is medium. Oh, okay, here we go. Maybe we can make it a little bigger. Let's say large. Okay, it's going to reset the whole thing. Look at that. Alright, well actually, maybe that's a little bigger. Yeah, it does look a little bigger. Okay, so that's good. So it's a little easier to read. Hide sensors and temp is off. Icon theme, language is English. So you got shortcuts on the sidebar there. You can turn that on and off. Printer connection, screen options, screen power off, 1 hour. Okay, that's a pretty good choices here. I guess I'm gonna select never for now, but you can have it turn off at certain times to preserve the screen. Show heater power, it's off, and slicer time correction. So quite a few options here, guys. Yeah, that's pretty much the basics here, and obviously once you connect to your browser window, you have a lot more options and controls. So for the next part, let's go ahead and preheat to PLA. Well, I guess it already is. Print. I guess we'll start with this 25 benchy. We do have this pressure advanced calibration print here, which we'll see what that's all about. All right, so let's flip this thing around. I'm going to load up some high flow filament, or should I say high speed filament. I'm going to cut on an angle with the cutters that came with the printer. And so let's see, how would this go? Okay, this is a switch type detector. I can hear the switch and I can actually see it because it's clear. And we can see that blue light coming on, but yeah, so far, not a pleasant experience here feeding it through. There we go. I'm guessing that's how it goes. And then I guess we go into this tube. So yeah, when you just need to push it through all the way, let's see here, until it goes through the whole system and then to the hot end. So you guys can't see this, but I'm gonna go to the screen and click on actions and then extrude and then click on load. All right, so it grabbed it. I can feel it pulling it through. Now if we flip back around, we can see maybe, or maybe you guys can see, but the filament is coming out right there. And there we go, so it purged through, and that's what our mini looked like. We just click on load here and it loads it, and unloading looks like is the same way. You're just gonna click on load and it's gonna retract it. Now we can go back to our print file, and I guess we'll start with this 25-minute benchy. And we gotta click on print. So it's gonna confirm if we wanna do that. And before we do, we can go ahead and grab this burger out of here. I'm gonna click print, and it started. You guys can see right there, so it's setting up. Okay, there we go. So I guess it needed time to heat up and whatnot else. So I'm hoping our z-axis offset is good. If it's not, we can adjust it here in the fine tuning with the z up and down right there. So all right, so it started. All right, so it's definitely too low. Okay, so I had to hit the red button down there to stop it. So I'm restarting it now. So yeah guys, it appears that our z-axis offset was incorrect, and that is unfortunate. Home it for now, because we did definitely scrape into the build plate and definitely ruined it. yeah, be careful with that, as the setup process was not very good in showing us where we needed to be. But thank goodness that our build plate here is printable on both sides, so we can ruin one side and still have a good side of the other. So let's go to configuration and Z calibration. Let's see what we missed here. All right, for whatever reason, we are way off. Let's start here. So the weird part is the nozzle doesn't actually land close to the build plate, and it just has a bunch of numbers here that kind of don't make any sense. It says probe offset and then Z offset, so it's really confusing. How are we supposed to set it if it's way off? So it being correct here, it actually shows us that we are minus 0.47 instead of the saved 1.4. So I don't know, let's see if that works. Alright, so I'm going to restart this thing again, and let's hope we're not going to scrape anything. But I guess if we do, not a big deal, as we already scraped up this side of the build plate. Alright, so it's getting close to being preheated, and there we go. So hopefully this time around, we're going to be better off. It appears that we might be okay now. I can't really tell, honestly. Okay, yeah, we are perfect, actually. How weird is that? And it's actually printing in a different spot. Very weird. Alright, there's something stuck here. Can't get it out, but in any case, it's printing and everything's fine now. So whatever we did the first time, I guess try not to do that, but maybe it was just a glitch, who knows. Either way, I can see the gap is perfect. So let's check out the menu here while it's printing. So we got the progress there, 8%, the file, name there. I guess supposed to be a picture here maybe, but there's not one on this one. The temperature, what it's at the moment, plus the target. Same for the bed. Here we have the speed. It actually shows you how fast it's moving. The Z so far, how much it's went up. Fans, flow rate looks like. Time passed, how much left, 22 minutes. Then we have pause, cancel, fine tune, and settings. So if we click on fine tune, here you can see you can go up and down with the Z. Also the speed and the extrusion amount. And then here you reset it to the default. And if we go to settings, okay, so here we can control a little more, like the heat, the fans, and things like that. So yeah, pretty straightforward. And maybe you guys can hear it, it's actually not that loud. And if I close this, which for PLA we shouldn't probably close it, but it gets very quiet then. So yeah, pretty cool. You guys can see our benchy is moving along really quick. Alright, so our little benchy's done, and we also printed the calibration or pressure calibration test, and we'll go over that in a second, but let's take a closer look at this guy. So yeah, it only took 25 minutes. It stuck perfectly, so you guys can see the offset was just right, and check out how good those layers went down. So this is matte PLA, it's high flow, and it's sitting really good. We have very minimal vibrations, and very slight ghosting at this kind of speed is totally acceptable. Surprisingly, you can almost make out the hashtag 3D Benchy in the back. Great cooling on the overhangs, practically no stringing, very clean. Box looks great, the roof, the chimney, yeah, excellent prints. And honestly, for 25 minutes, this is one of the best I've seen in a while. When you print the advanced pressure file, this is what you're going to get: a bunch of lines and a bunch of numbers, hopefully it's showing up here, that represent the line. So what you're going to do is you're going to look at the lines and see which flow is the most even. So we can see the lines kind of break up here. It's kind of hard to capture with all this glare, but you kind of see the lines are breaking up. Then they're kind of more fatter there and skinnier. So what you're looking for is a perfect line. And on mine here, it's somewhere down here, because here we still have kind of issues. It's too thick here and then too thin here. And then this one starts to go the other way around. It's too thin on the bottom and too thick on this side. So we need to be somewhere I would say in this area here. So judging just by the eyeball, it looks like this line right above my finger right there, which will be about 0.018 or 0.02 probably be all right. So where you'll adjust this in the Klipper software. So let's quickly hop over to the computer and we'll check that out. All right, so here we are at the computer, and you guys can see we are on the Kingroon KLP1 dashboard of Fluid, which is the back end of Klipper, and all we are here is in a browser, and right here where you would normally put your website or whatever, you're going to put your IP address with a slash ## and another slash, and it's going to connect to your printer. So make sure your printer is connected to Wi-Fi, and this dashboard here is going to pop up. So right on the front here we have quite a bit of information. We got the printer, we can control it here. We can see here the last file we printed, pressure advanced. Here we got quite a few controls, the flow rate, the speed. We can adjust our pressure control straight from here, but I'm going to show you guys where we can adjust that permanently. And I'm not sure if we change it here, it might be permanent too, which would be kind of cool. That would be quite simple. But in any case, here we have the graph of the extruders and some more temperature readings here. I'm not sure exactly what these are for, but yeah, these are all controllable here. We got macros that you can just push and it'll do. The fan controls, the jobs, so this is so far everything we printed. The limits to the printer here, everything is turned up all the way. So if you want to preview a G-code, you just put it in here and you guys can see it's going to give you the whole thing broke down of this file, which is quite a bit of code there. Yeah, so here on the side we're on home, then we got console, so nothing's here at the moment, and then we have the G-code preview here, jobs that we've done, the history, tuning, configuration, and this is where you can go into printer config, and here you guys can see it's the code to the printer. So I just pushed command find on my keyboard and type in pressure, and we can see here it starts to outline the word, and we are on 0.03, and according to the print we printed, I think it needs to be 0.018, or we could just go 0.02, but I'm gonna try this 0.18, and that's it. It's gonna ask us if we want to save the changes. Yes. So we've now adjusted our pressure advanced calibration. So here we have a systems folder, more things about the printer, how much memory it has here. So it's got 2.2 gigs free out of, it looks like 7, maybe, I guess it's 8. And down here we got settings, which you can adjust quite a few things. So yeah, basically this is what Klipper's all about, the control or the full control to the printer. So let's go ahead and print something else. So here in the job section, we're going to just grab a code, and you guys can see it says to drag something in, and we got this calibration cube code, and we can see it right there. So we can click on it and click print, and that's going to execute our print. And here it says the status of what the machine is doing. So yeah, we can see our bed is warming up, and then the nozzle will be warming up. But yeah, simple as that, guys. That's pretty much how you control the printer from the computer. Obviously you do need a slice. We're not going to go over that today. Prusa Slicer has the Kingroon settings. You just download that and slice the G-code, and then as you guys saw, we dragged it in here and started printing. So as the printer is getting ready to print, let me show you guys what's on the thumb drive. So we got a PDF, which is the disassembly guide card, which I'm not sure why they put disassembly, but then here it says assembly. Disassembly, I guess, meaning like to release the X, Y, and Z that's bolted down. But yeah, it's basically the same card here. And then we have the manual that's in both Chinese and English. Just English is upside down on this one. So they include an Orca slicer that you can install, and this is just for Windows, and also the Prusa slicer for Windows. We also got some kind of config file here. So, but yeah, pretty much that's it, guys. As we can see here on the dashboard, our print has started. It says here about how long it's gonna take. I guess about 18 minutes for this calibration cube. So I didn't slice it too fast, but I think it was 250 millimeters a second. But yeah, here on the thermals, we can see our nozzle, our bed temperature, and I guess there was also a fan temperature, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, you can set the targets here, and here we have a graph of where everything is. Simple as that, guys. You can also connect the camera to here with the USB, and then also be able to monitor straight from here. And yeah, quite a comprehensive dashboard here with Klipper software. Alright, so we printed quite a few prints, and I have to say this is a pretty solid machine and overall did very well. So let's talk about some of the prints that we printed. So we've seen the benchy. After that, we printed the calibration cube. So because it's a CoreXY machine, this doesn't really mean much, but still we can look at the faces here. This is the X, the Y. The layers are all sitting very nicely. The X wall and the Y wall. The bottom, it did lift here a bit, or actually that's not a lift, that's missing material, so it started printing with no filament. So yeah, that's I guess kind of my fault, but other than that, you guys can see the bottom's very nice, as it is a crinkled finished PEI sheet texture, and the top is also beautiful. So calibration cube turned out very good. So for the next print, we got this little froggy. So I like to print these as there's pretty fine detail around the paws here, plus we can see how the layers sit and all these curvatures. Very nice. There's no stringing, or very minimal, a little bit here and there. But yeah, eventually I bumped the retractions all the way to 1 millimeter. So 0.8 to 1 seems to be the sweet spot for mine. We did have a little bit of sagging here, and that might have had to do something with the higher speed printing, but it is there. And by the way, these prints so far that we're looking at have been printed in 250 millimeters a second, with the walls slowed down half speed. Here we have a pretty hard print to print, as there's quite a few pieces and they all have to stick, and if you know one of these legs fall off, it's obviously failed. But here you guys can see all the legs stuck and they're actually perfect. There's no stringing, also very nice, and you know, printed at this really high speed. It's quite impressive how well it turned out. There's a support here that needs to come off, but yeah, if we look at the face here and the head, you can see how nice and clean the layers are. Beautiful print. And again, this is a dual color filament with this darker black, I guess, with the purple on the other side. So yeah, great print, and shows how well the build plate also works, as everything sticks very well. So here we have a Squirtle, which is a squirrel and turtle shell, and again, this is in the dual color. Looks great, and for how quick this was printed out, it looks really nice. Now if you guys do see some layering here and there, that's just from the lighting, the way the light hits the layers, but we do have a little bit of vibrations here and there, and maybe some ghosting, light ghosting. So yeah, very good print here also. So here we have a shark, and also printed in pieces. Again, perfect on everything. Everything stuck, everything works, no stringing. The layers went down beautifully. But what we have here is a mouth that's functional, and I'm very curious to see if it's going to open up, as sometimes it melts together, and you guys can see none of the teeth fell off, which is kind of the hardest thing to print as they come to a point. And sometimes they will print crooked because they, you know, bend over as it prints. But yeah, let's see if this mouth will open up. It doesn't want to easily, so connected in more places than normal. So after prying on that front tooth quite a bit, it did seem to break, but it also broke a tooth off there. So just break that off. Yeah, it just comes right out. So we just removed the shark tooth. But yeah, this is a functional mouth, and I do believe if it wasn't for the crazy speed, it would have been fine. So overall, good print, but if you're gonna do more precision, you do need to slow it down a bit. And so our last print in PLA is actually this chainmail, and this thing turned out perfect, and you guys can see there are a lot of pieces here. The amount of retractions this printer had to do is incredibly insane, and you guys can see it actually printed this out and every piece stuck to the build plate. And yeah, it's quite impressive to see that it is capable of doing these kind of prints. So if you want to really stress test your printer, try printing this chainmail. So naturally I wanted to try different type of filament, like ABS especially, because we have an enclosure here. And with ABS, we did print out these wheels. Printed out pretty nicely overall. We do have a little bit of stringing, a little bit of, see here, layer separation on the bottom. On the very first layers, I'm guessing contraction, meaning the filament shrinking, it peeled off. But yeah, that's what usually ABS does. So it appears that we probably need higher bed temperature / higher nozzle temperature. I think I printed at 250, and probably 260 would have been better. But we do have a support here. Let's see how easy that comes off, or if it does at all. Oh, let's see, maybe I can just break it with my hand. All right, so it just came out with one twirl there and broke off really clean. It's quite a usable piece here, which are little drift wheels for an RC car printed in ABS. So if you want to do ABS printing, not an issue. And the next print will prove that, as it is this contraption here. So this, I did turn up the heated bed to 100 on this one. So yeah, it prints basically flat like this. And this is a functional print with lots of moving pieces and many different pieces that have to combine together. And shockingly enough, it actually turned out pretty much perfect. So you fold this over, and then these are tracks that actually roll. So yeah, not bad at all. And this is an ABS, so it's really strong. Now, one thing I noticed is that if we look over here on these overhangs as it prints like this, since this is upside down, we did have a little bit of droopage there, so I probably needed to have the cooling a little higher. I did turn down the cooling for this print, but other than that, there's really no fault to this thing, and it looks like it's pretty much perfect. We maybe could be a little closer to the bed, as I can see some lines on the first layer or some gaps, but yeah, other than that, amazing print that actually turned out perfect. The next print here is we have this rocket plane. So it's kind of like a plane slash rocket. You guys can see it looks really good. And this was printed in PETG spiralized mode. So this is a few layers on the bottom and then one layer all the way around. It's quite light and hollow and quite strong. You guys can see I'm pushing on it, just flexing back. I knew I was going to crack that, but I wanted to see the limit. But yeah, very good here for PETG on the lower part, but as we went up, something strange started happening. We started getting weird artifacts, and especially on the back side, you guys can see that it's pretty severe here. Not sure exactly what happened, as it looks perfect here. So I wasn't here to see what the printer was doing or what was going on. And my suspicion was the lid here that opens up. I think it was touching the spool and it was snagging on it a bit, but I'm not sure if that was the problem or not. But in any case, it did complete all the way to the top, and actually it looks pretty good even at the point. And this is the full height of 210 millimeters tall, which on our last print here, we also have a rocket, and it's perfect pretty much to the top. There is a little bit of inconsistencies. And what's really impressive about this is that it's printed in TPU. It's also a few layers on the bottom, one layer all the way around, so it's spiralized mode. And what's great is, well, this thing is sealed pretty well, so let's see if I can deflate it here by pushing on it. It's quite large. But yeah, because it's TPU, we can literally fold it into this shape here, and then it'll just bounce right back. So it will have to inflate here. And yeah, this is sealed very well, so we have quite an accurate layer adhesion. There we go, so it's starting to take shape here. But yeah, that's one of the cool things about TPU is how flexible it is and how indestructible it is for certain applications. And quite impressive that this printer can do TPU also. So yeah, as you guys can see, it does very well with pretty much everything. ABS, I printed at slower speeds. I think it was around 100 millimeters a second. PETG, same. And the TPU, I printed even slower at 60. But the rest of the prints, as you guys saw, were at 250. So yeah, great speeds, great precision, and overall the printer performed very well. But obviously not everything's perfect on this thing, as there are some quirks, which one of them we can't see, but it's the filament detector location. I decided not to use it, so you can't turn it off here in the display and just go straight into the tube. And speaking about the tube, loading the filament and unloading does take a little bit. The loading part is actually not too hard. You just feed it in there and then click load, and if you might have to help it push it the rest of the way to grab it, but it usually grabs it and pushes through. But the quirk part is the unload. Once you click unload, it preheats the nozzle, purges a little bit, and then backs out, and then waits to cool down all the way to 62, I think. And then after it cools down to 62, then it retracts it. So there's a bit of a waiting period. I don't know how long, maybe about 5 minutes or so, until you can unload the filament. So that got a little annoying waiting for it. And also these covers here, especially this back one, when it does fall all the way back, it does hit a full spool right on the top, which puts more drag on the spool and can cause the extruder to slow it down or to, have a hard time pulling it through. So that's kind of unfortunate. I feel like they should have done something a little bit different in the back with how they feed their filament through the detector and how the lid opens and how far it goes. So yeah, not completely thought through there, but that is one of the quirks here. Now you can't print with this just closed, as I try to keep it open because these are pretty dark and it really cuts the light for the filming and whatnot else I need to do. But if you do keep it closed, it's obviously not an issue. And the last thing that could be annoying, if yours will have it or not, but at certain resonance and movements, there is going to be vibrations. Even though this thing is built like a tank and it's heavy, moving very fast, accelerating and decelerating does create resonance. And if there's anything remotely loose or even a little loose that can vibrate, it will vibrate. And so this printer at certain speeds and movements, it developed a sound, I guess. And maybe I need to run the input shaping again to help with that. And also I feel like because the feet are plastic, if we put it on something rubber, rubber, or like a rubber mat, or even get some kind of foam pads underneath. That will greatly reduce the sound and quiet this thing way down too. So again, there are some quirks with this thing, but overall it is built extremely well with a very solid structure. Big pluses for the high-speed printing, CoreXY configuration, very nice hot end, heats up super quick. On the nozzle, bed is pretty reasonable too. It did take a few minutes to get to 100, maybe about 5 or so. The rag drive extruder is very strong and pulls the filament no problem. We got a very reasonable build volume of 230 by 230 and 210 tall. Linear rails on the X and Y and rods for the Z. We do have complete out of bed leveling, which seems to work very well and compensate as it moves around. The nozzle can preheat to 300 and I got the bed to 100, no issues. We do have silent steppers, so it is quite quiet at lower speeds. And of course we have a sealed design, close all the lids and you're enclosed, and that really helps with printing ABS and other materials that require enclosures. But of course we do have really dark doors that you're either going to really like it, or maybe it's a little too dark because there's no light on the inside, which I wish there was, so you can see your print when you're closed, or these should maybe be a little less dark. But that's more preferenceable. It does look really nice when it's closed and clean. And I do love this light up here for the Kingroon KLP1 logo. And the last thing I think we should touch on is the screen. It is 3.5 inch diagonally here. It's on the smaller side, even though it's not tiny, but the font is tiny. For the most part, you do want to use this stylus that comes with it. I just have it hanging here on the knob. You can use your finger if you use your fingernail to kind of click on stuff, but again, the font is super small. But overall, the layout does work and you do have quite a few options in the screen. So yeah, overall, I think this is a good printer. It feels like it's 99% or 95% polished, where a few more tweaks would make it perfect. But with that said, it performs very well and very easy to get started with, and pretty much has everything you'd want in a 3D printer, especially the connectivity through Wi-Fi on your network to control it via the Klipper software, which is probably the best and most comprehensive way to access your printer and communicate with it. So if high speed enclosed Klipper with great build volume is on your list, then I think the KLP1 here is a great machine. And so for everything it offers for the right price, it's quite a good value. So if you guys are interested in this printer, I'm gonna have some links in the description. Check it out. And if you did enjoy this video, then hit that like button. If you want to see more videos like this, check out my 3D printing playlist. I'm sure you'll find something interesting there. And also stay tuned as we have quite a few interesting printers coming up. And if you made it to the end, thumbs up to you. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.